Okay, so I'm continuing with the Gospel of John theme. Last time we had the raising of Lazarus in John 11, and I'm now taking us into John 12. So there's been a big celebration in the home of Mary and Martha in Bethany, and there's been a meal to celebrate the raising of Lazarus. And the following morning is now Sunday morning, and it's the first day of the very last week of Jesus' life. And there's an air of excitement because everyone is aware that he's about to enter Jerusalem. So he sets off, takes this path, is followed by a whole crowd of pilgrims, people that have seen Lazarus raised from the dead, as well as his closest disciples. He takes this path down through this lovely shady little valley area between two shoulders of the Mount of Olives. And he comes around, and he's about to enter the village of Bethphage, and he sends two of his disciples into the village and says, "You'll find a donkey and its foal tied up, and you're to say, 'The Lord has need of it,' and they will let you have it." And sure enough, they did. They brought this donkey and its foal to Jesus. They set Jesus on the foal, because it had never been ridden on, and this was a special thing for King Jesus to ride on an unridden foal, in fulfillment of the prophecy of Zechariah, that the king will come riding on a donkey, the foal of a donkey. So they set him on this donkey, and at this point, word has got around, and a whole lot of people from Jerusalem have come out to meet him, and there's a huge air of excitement, and he's riding into town, and he's about to come around to that point where Jerusalem comes into view. And the crowds are beginning to sing, "Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And then he comes around the edge of this hill, and Jerusalem comes into view. And he can see the beauty of it. It's one of the wonders of the ancient world. You can see the temple with all its white marble and gold. It's glistening in the morning sun. It's made other pilgrims stop in their tracks in a sense of awe. But for Jesus, he stops while he's on the back of this donkey, and he enters into a state of profound grief. He goes into a loud lament. At the tomb of Lazarus, he had quietly wept. But here he goes into a loud lament because he knows that within 30 years, the whole place will be completely destroyed by the Romans. He says, "If only you had known at this time the things that make for peace, the city that stones those who are sent to them." And then he gradually makes his way up this winding path up to the first gate into Jerusalem, and all the crowds are still crying out, and the Pharisees are getting upset and saying, "You need to get them to stop." And he says, if they don't cry out, the stones will cry out. He enters in through the gate of the city, and he finds his way to the temple. At that point, all the crowds that are with him begin to dissipate. But then he finds in the temple, in the court of the Gentiles, the same situation that he found 3 years earlier, which is that it's full of money changers and people selling livestock. They've made it into a den of thieves. They've made it into a marketplace. And so he again has to clear the money changers. The money changers are charging 12% commission to change the denarius into a shekel, and there are people charging the earth for livestock, and it's full of this kerfuffle, and he has to clear it away. And he says, "My house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you've made it into a den of thieves." And at that point, there are some Greeks whose ears prick up when he says a house of prayer for all nations, because they think, okay, that includes us. Right, okay, so it includes the Greeks. So we're going to go and find out a bit more. And so once all these money changers and all this noise has been cleared away, the temple courts are clear for a day of teaching. So he starts a day of teaching, what will end up being his last full day of public teaching. And he's teaching all day until late in the afternoon, when these Greeks, they come to Philip and they start persistently asking, "Philip, we want to see Jesus. We want to see Jesus. We want you to introduce us to Jesus." We don't know why they've gone to Philip, other than that he's got a Greek name, and so they think maybe he's kind of like one of us. But Phil is a spectacularly ordinary person. Phil seems to be always out of his depth when it comes to deep spiritual things. He's always thinking on a certain practical level. We meet him at the start of the gospel where he's found by Jesus and then introduces Jesus to Andrew. Well, that's good. He's got off to a great start. But then when it comes to the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus tests him by saying, how are we going to feed these people? But he does this piece of gymnastics, this piece of mental arithmetic, and he calculates exactly how much it's going to cost to feed 5,000 families, and it's just not the right answer. He's always on this practical level. And then later on in the upper room, he says to Jesus, Jesus, just show us the Father, and it's enough for us. And at that point, Jesus says, I can't believe you just said that. I can't believe you just said that. For 3 years, I've been telling you that I've come to show you the Father. I've been telling you that my Father is in me and I'm in my Father. I've been teaching you this prayer addressed to our Father who is in heaven. And now you're saying, show us the Father. There's something he just wasn't getting. And similarly here, he's out of his depth. He does not know what to do when these Greeks want to be introduced to Jesus. So he goes to Andrew. Andrew always seems to bail him out, and so the two of them take these Greeks to Jesus. And as soon as Jesus sees these Greek people, he realizes that that's the trigger for him to wrap up his public teaching ministry, because he thinks this is a sign of what is to come. After my resurrection, after the outpouring of the Spirit, there'll be this worldwide ingathering of all the nations, and it'll be called the church. This was like the sign, okay, so my work here is done. All of this is about to happen. And so until then, he's been talking about this hour that is coming. But from that moment onwards, he talks about an hour that has now come. The hour has now come. With the arrival of these Gentiles, the hour has come for this phase to finish and for the next phase that we're now in to start. And so he wants to find something that counts. He wants to find a way to summarize his teaching in a way that's going to mean something to these Greeks and captures some of the very most important things he would want to say. And he says this, chapter 12, verses 23 to 25. Jesus replied, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed, but if it dies, it produces many seeds. Anyone who loves their life will lose it, while anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life." That is the thing he chooses as the most important thing he wants them to hear. We know that the central message that Jesus brought was the kingdom of God. That's what he taught about. But within that, I would say you can probably summarize everything Jesus says about the kingdom under 3 basic ideas. The first basic idea is that this kingdom has already come, and yet it's yet to come. It's already and not yet. It's progressing. It's a progressive kingdom. It's not all arrived, but it will arrive. And it's from this idea, because wave upon wave of Christian influence has worked its way into our culture, it's thanks to this that we have in the West this idea that history is going somewhere. Cultures that have not had that Christian influence have a circular view of history. Everything's going round and round. What goes round comes round. Reincarnation, that kind of thing. And before Christianity came to Europe, we were the same. We didn't think that anything was going anywhere. Everything was just going round and round. But thanks to this teaching of Jesus, that there's this progressive influence of the kingdom, this progressive triumph of good over evil, it's instinctive for us now, isn't it? We naturally think that history, of course, is going somewhere. We're progressing. We're getting better. Sometimes we doubt that, don't we? But it's in our DNA, thanks to Jesus. We think history is actually going somewhere. And then the second big idea is that the kingdom is about including the excluded. Jesus was very clear about that in everything he did and said. It was all about the last, the lost, and the least. It was all about the last being first. It was about those on the margins being welcomed in. And he embodied it. He enacted it all the time by the way he ate with tax collectors and sinners. And likewise, this has worked its way through. We've not only got that as a church, but it's worked its way through into our culture. And that's why we, in Western cultures where we've had this influence, we value things like tolerance and inclusion and diversity and equality. All these things don't make any sense outside the West. In countries that haven't had this influence, that makes no sense. Why would equality be important? Why would inclusion be important? But it's important to us because of this influence. But then there's this third element that Jesus teaches, which is that you enter the life of the kingdom only through death. You gain life by losing it. You gain it by losing it. Life comes through death. And we see this same principle embodied in lots of different ways. It talks about how those who humble themselves will be exalted. Those who serve are the greatest. The children will teach the adults. The last shall be first. The outcasts feast with Jesus. So it's always an upside down, topsy-turvy, backwards way of looking at it. Life comes after death, not the other way around. Gaining what matters comes by losing everything. And that's the thing that has only very rarely been understood, I think. And Jesus gives us this picture of a wheat plant in the corner of a field. It's not been harvested. We don't know why it's not been harvested. The harvesters have been and gone, and there's a wheat plant that's just standing there unharvested. It's full of like 20 to 50 seeds in this head of grain, and it's waiting, and it's not been harvested. And he asked us to imagine that it has a mind, this wheat plant. It can either choose just to stand there and hope for nature to take its course. And if nature does take its course, the weight of grain will eventually cause the stem to buckle, because the stem will just get drier and drier and weaker and weaker, and it buckles over like that, and the seeds spill out into the ground. And very interestingly, each seed has 2 spikes on it. And during the night, those spikes buckle with moisture, and then during the day they straighten out. So it's like 2 frogs' legs, which help to bury the seed into the ground. Do you know that? Did you? That's how a wheat seed sows itself. Fascinating. So that's how nature would take its course. But Jesus is asking us to imagine a situation in which you take charge of that process. All the action words he uses, like falls into the ground and dies or remains, these are all in the active voice, which is very unusual. He's asking us to imagine that this wheat plant makes itself buckle and break, makes itself fall into the ground and shed its seed. Either that, or it remains in this desolate state where actually maybe nothing happens. Maybe it doesn't succeed in buckling, and it just remains where it is, gradually disintegrating, going all mildewy, and eventually shedding its seed, but they're not viable, and no fruit comes. And he explains it by saying, anyone who loves their life will lose it, while anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. So it's this third aspect of the kingdom that's not been understood, death through life. One of the first ways in which the church tried to understand this was maybe it's through martyrdom. Maybe martyrdom is the answer, literally throwing yourself to the lions. The church experienced wave upon wave of persecution, but the worst one was the Great Persecution of AD 303, and it's estimated that about 2/3 of the people that were thrown to the lions had not been sought out by the authorities. They had literally volunteered to be a meal for a lion, which I find extraordinary. These Christians just sort of ramming themselves into the mouths of these lions, and these lions completely overfed. There must have been an absolute glut of Christians. Christians for breakfast and dinner and tea. Christians for elevenses, emaciated mystics and pasty-faced hermits being thrown their way. You can imagine all the indigestible matter as well, all the bits of beard that must be just sort of repeating on them and stuff, you know. They're knocking back the Gaviscon and stuff like that. You can just imagine all the sort of the sandals getting stuck in their teeth and the bits of halo and whatnot. It must have been absolutely awful for them. Whereas at least, you know, someone like Daniel made it fun. He must have made it fun for them. Otherwise, they would have eaten him. He made it into a game. But these Christians were just, you know, just trying to make it happen like that. It must have been so boring, and they must have been so overfed with Christians. So I don't think they got that right. And I feel sorry for the lions. But the second option, maybe it's not martyrdom, but maybe it's some kind of spiritual mortification, the mortification of the flesh. And this was another popular option, that you just punish your body, you discipline your body until it no longer is able to show any of its appetites. Simeon Stylites is one of the most outstanding examples of this. He showed these radical tendencies from a young age. He was converted at 13, and already by the age of 16 he wanted to go into the monastery. And he took his vows, but it still wasn't radical enough for him. He wanted to go further. So he tried living in a hut for a while, but still it wasn't Spartan enough. There were too many creature comforts in this hut. And so he found this rocky outcrop, about 20 meters square, and he lived on a rocky outcrop for about a year. He lived on this rocky outcrop in all weathers. Sorry, I'm a bit thirsty this morning. Lived on a rocky outcrop for about a year, all weathers, in the searing heat, day in, day out. But the trouble was, by then he started to look like a holy man. He really looked the part. You know, all of his hair had grown out, his beard had grown out. And so everyone went to him for advice. You must be some kind of holy man, so give us some spiritual counsel. And he was so bothered by all these people coming for spiritual counsel that he thought, I've had enough of this. I'm going to live on top of a pillar. So he found a 10-foot pillar in a Roman ruin. He lived on top of this pillar for a while. But by then, he was a celebrity. And everyone kept crowding around him, expecting him to do a church service. They wanted him to preach. So there he is, trying to get some prayer in. And he's crouched down writing these sermons all day long. They want him to do the bread and wine. And he's got throngs of people wanting him to do church for them. And he's thinking, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this. So he finds a 50-foot pillar. This is all true, 50-foot pillar. And he climbs up on top of that. On the top, there's a platform of about a meter square. And he lives on there, this is no lie, for 36 years. 36 years on top of a pillar. Simeon Stylites. Absolute legend. And so his day consisted of just a prayer routine. Sometimes he'd pray like that, and sometimes he'd pray like that. And that's all he did all day. It was an absolute local marvel. It was accessible only by ladder. People would bring in food, medical supplies if he got sick. And even when his own mum died, he wouldn't come down off the pillar. They brought his coffin, and he paid his respects. Okay, I can see the coffin. Off she went to be buried. And then when he himself died, he was found in a prostrate position, you know, his forehead right down on the platform. He literally died in prayer. What a guy. But I don't think they always got it right. You know, you think of the flagellists during the medieval period, these people that would literally flog themselves. Peter Damian would flog himself in public in order to atone for the sins of what was done to Jesus. Or Catherine of Siena, who only gave herself half an hour's sleep every other night. So a night would be spent entirely in prayer, and then the following night would be entirely in prayer, apart from half an hour. And instead of a belt, she wore an iron chain that would keep pinching her skin. And she overdid the fasting so much that she died at the age of 35, I think it was. So I don't think that was it either. It's not martyrdom, it's not mortification. So is it just a moral code of conduct then? Is it a kind of a deference to others? You know, you want to get together with your friend and he says, so what do you want to do then? And you say, oh, I don't mind. I don't mind. It's not up to you. I lay down my life for you, brother. What do you want to do? Well, I'm following the same principles, so I really don't mind. You know, we could go to the pub, we could walk, or whatever you want to do. You know, we could decide it's some kind of moral code of conduct, a kind of denying of yourself, a denial of your will and wishes. But there's an interesting thing that it says about Peter. It says that he followed at a distance. Having initially said, I'm ready to die with you, Jesus, he ends up following at a distance, and he's in the outer courts. And then when push comes to shove, and he's queried about whether he knows Jesus, he denies it. He denies it. When push comes to shove, if you're just following at a distance using a moral code, it'll let you down. So what does it mean? What does it mean? Well, I've tried to put together all the times when Jesus says things like, if you want to find life, you have to lose it. You know, you've got to take up your cross, you've got to deny yourself. I've tried to put it all together and summarize it. Wherever there is a person who cannot let go, I've tried to find a better phrase, but I think that's probably the best I can do. Who cannot let go, that person will lose the very thing they are trying to keep. Wherever there's someone that has learnt to let go, that one has already found the path to happiness, peace, and life, and will keep it for eternity. It's interesting to note that in the Greek, you could translate it as, whoever is loving his life is destroying it, is losing it, is destroying it. There's something about trying to save what you've got that causes the very thing you're trying to save to in the end be lost. I've only recently come into the Star Wars trilogy. I'm still not a massive fan of it, but I know enough about it to say that it's Anakin Skywalker that becomes Darth Vader. Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. And the way he becomes this monstrous figure is that he's so desperate to save what he has, so terrified of it being taken from him, that in the end he loses everything, doesn't he? He loses everything. He ends up getting into a lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think, and is on a volcanic planet. It's not a great place to have a lightsaber fight. And he ends up very, very badly singed, and that's why he has to have this special suit with this special breathing apparatus. He lost everything because he tried so hard. He kept having these nightmares about his wife dying in childbirth, I think that's right. And because of that, he was obsessed with trying to keep what he had. And then he turns to the dark side. And because he turns to the dark side, that's how he loses everything. So, what does that mean for us? Well, it definitely doesn't mean martyrdom. It doesn't mean mortification. It doesn't mean a moral code. Because if you note, Jesus says here, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. So first and foremost, it's Jesus' own dying and rising that we participate in. He helps us through it. He helps us let go of what we're trying to hold on to. He helps us go down into that place that feels like a kind of a death. And I don't think it's necessarily a death, because he doesn't always use images of death, but he does always use images that seem to suggest that you have to humble yourself, let go of things, and trust in him. He helps us through that. By taking his pathway, he says, not as I will, your will be done, that culminates in him saying, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. By going there with him and in him, that's how we do it. Okay. So wherever there's a person who cannot let go, that person will lose the very thing they're trying to keep. Wherever there is someone that has learned to let go, that one has already found the path to happiness, peace, and life, and will keep it for eternity. So this is how the kingdom works, and this is the third principle by which the kingdom works. It works by progress. It works by welcoming in the outsiders, but it also works by us entering the life of the kingdom by allowing the kingdom to enter our life. And we allow the kingdom to enter our life when we let the reign of God enter our life. And God always has this way of picking on that bit of your life where you struggle to let go, where you want to carry on reigning, where you want to carry on being in control. Take the rich young ruler. Jesus says, the rich young ruler clearly did want to enter the kingdom life. He wanted it. He recognized it. He wanted it. And then Jesus immediately hits on the thing that's going to stop it. And he says, go sell all that you have and give it to the poor. No, I can't do it. Can't do that. I want to keep that bit. I want to keep it. So the way to enter the reign of God, the kingdom of God, is to let the reign of God enter us. And the way to let the reign of God enter us is to let go of the things that we want to carry on controlling. So there may be a whole variety of things. It could be your own offenses, maybe your own guilt, your own poor track record. Maybe that's something you just need to let go of. Or the offenses of others. Maybe there's a whole body of offense where you think you need to hold on to it because you don't think God is going to do anything with it if you just give it to him. But maybe if you do just give it to him, he will not only relieve you of the burden of it, but also deal with issues of justice. Maybe you can't let go of your name. I know this is a big one, isn't it? Where we are too obsessed with what other people think of us. And we are terrified of what they think of us. Obsessed with it. Obsessed with it. But you need to let Jesus look after your name. Let Jesus look after your family. We lie awake worrying about children and family members. My voice is bad this morning. Don't know why. Or finances. In the case of the rich young ruler, is because he had too much. But probably for most of us, it's because we've never got quite enough. But it's the same principle. You still need to let go. You still need to surrender it. You still need to hand over ownership. So if the band could come up, I'll just finish with a word of prayer. Shall we just stand if you're able to? Father God, we open our hearts and we allow you to touch those things in our lives like you did with the rich young ruler, that thing, that area where we're always fretting, where we're always anxious because we've not let you have ownership. We've not let you reign and rule. So I just want to give you some space now. If you feel that God has hit upon something where you need to relinquish control, then just do that now. I also feel as though I've been given an image of a kind of it's a fake mine. It's like a coal mine, but it's not real. It's not mining anything. It's just a model mine. And I think that there's somebody here. You've got yourself caught up in an online world that you're trying to mine something from, and you've spent hours at this mine. But it's not real. You're mining the air. You're mining nothing. You're mining wasted time. And just surrender that to him. Allow him to open your eyes to how empty it is. for it to lose its appeal.